Good evening. We'll be starting in about a minute or two. Welcome to the Writer's Corner. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. My name's Drew Becker. I'm with Do-It-Yourself Publishing Pro, which presents and sponsors the Writer's Corner. We do this once a month and talk to writers about different topics that are of interest to writers and I hope to readers. And tonight we will be talking about exposure for your book. And I have two great writers with me. I have Megan Cutter and Diogenes Ruiz, and I will have them introduce themselves in just a minute. I just want to let you know, though, a little bit about the Do-It-Yourself Publisher. This is software that enables you to create an ebook and put it up onto Amazon. It's available online. We have classes live in Raleigh, and we also are getting ready to do Google Hangout classes all over the country, and in fact all over the world. So that's very exciting. That'll be coming up in the next 30 days. Let's go ahead and get started. And I would like to have Megan Cutter introduce herself. And Megan, welcome.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show today. I am Megan Cutter, and I'm the co-owner of Cutter's Edge Consulting. My husband, Barton, and I published and released our first memoir last February called Ink and the Wheels, Stories to Make Love Roll. And I'm also an editor, a social media strategist, and a guest blogger for several different blogs.
Thank you. Our other guest tonight is Diogenes Ruiz. And Diogenes, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks for having me, Drew. I'm getting a little bit of technical. I'm hearing what you just said, looping in my head. As far as it's like the recording is playing live, so I'm not sure if I have a setting wrong or right, but I'll try to ignore it. My name's Diogenes Ruiz, and I am author of a couple of novels. First one is A Rabbit's Tale, an Easter Story, and the second one that's just about finished is Persistent Evil. I'm also the founder of the Book Preview Club, which I started for authors to get more exposure, which hopefully we'll talk about a little bit later.
Great. We're looking forward to doing that. Well, let's start off with probably one of the most important things about getting exposure, and it's
I'm not sure if I have a setting wrong or right, but I'll try to ignore it.
I guess we've got a little playback there from Diogenes. Okay. How do you put out a quality product so people do want to read it? And I'll open that up to Megan first.
Well, as a writer, I've been writing since I was a child, and so it's a little bit different for those of us who have grown up in that writing process and those of us who know that we want to put a book out and it's part of our brand and what we need to be doing to market ourselves. But it is important to have a quality product. So I start at the very beginning, and that is, first of all, writing the story and getting the story out on paper. For me, it's the first draft is messy and it's not perfect, and it becomes polished through the editing process. So in that editing process, we were just talking a little bit earlier that because my husband is a writer too, we are naturally each other's editors. But if you don't have that, it's really important to have a good editor who's going to tell you this is what's working and this is what needs some work. You want that eye that helps you create that work and to be as polished as you can. So for me, it's about finding that balance of needing to get it out in the world, but also making sure that it's proofed and it's polished and it has everything that expresses what I want to say within it.
Thanks, Megan. You remind me of a quote I read recently by Hemingway. He said, "Everybody's first draft is crap."
Yeah.
So I think we're probably all in agreement as writers about that. Diogenes, could you add something to that about quality of the product that you're creating?
Absolutely, and I have to apologize. I had technical difficulties in the beginning, and I figured out what it was. I had the Google Plus Hangout playing while we were talking, so I was hearing it like 3 seconds later. It was really weird. So I've got it figured out now. But yeah, putting out a quality product. Everything that Megan said was really on target, and Megan is really fortunate that she has someone close that can help her with that. And if you're not that lucky to have someone who's very close to you and happens to have that skill set, it's something you don't want to skimp on. And aside from proofreading and editing, I think a beta reader is really critical because they can tell you about inconsistencies, the flow, the timing sometimes. The time doesn't make sense if you're talking about someone evolving as a character and it happens too fast. How do you know that? You want to get the thing done, so maybe you're not paying attention to that. Preferably not a family member or not a close friend, because sometimes they just don't want to break your heart and tell you your book stinks or whatever it might be that's critical that will help you. But you want that critical eye, like Megan said, to look at your script and get it cleaned up before you publish your book. I kind of did my first book a little bit differently. I went ready, shoot, aim, which I kind of knew going into that I would do it, but I think, after polishing it up and getting it out there, definitely I would only put it out after everything is fixed and edited, so that it's a professional product.
Can you talk a little bit about what a beta is? I think that that may be a new term for some of the folks.
About a beta reader?
Yes.
Yeah, beta readers it's like in software programming where you have a beta tester. They want to work the program to see if there are any bugs in the software. So if there are, then that's the programmer's opportunity to patch it and fix it up. Well, the same thing happens with a book. It's like people who screen a movie screeners. Beta readers will read your book and kind of look at it from the standpoint of what in this story needs fixing. And it's above the editing level, because editing, you're looking for commas and use of verbs and nouns and proper grammar. This is not that. So sometimes you might want to engage a beta reader and then have a copy proofreader look at your book. And sometimes they might be the same person, but often they're not.
Thank you. All right, let's go into the idea of exposure now, because the book does have to get out there so that people will find it. Because if you write it, they will not come.
That's true.
Right? We've all found that out. So let me ask a first question here, and I'll go back to Diogenes here to start this one. Where do you find your readers?
You know what? It's almost embarrassing, but I find my readers by giving the book away. That's how I find my readers. Of course, you tap into your circle. Your family, your friends, your mom, your dad, your uncle, everybody who's breathing and you know. But beyond that, find a group that engages or enjoys your genre and give it away. Now, that sounds easy, but man, I've never realized how difficult it would be to give my book away. It's a good book, but giving it away, that's another story, and that's part of the marketing. And I think as authors, a lot of us are just absolutely lousy marketers because we're so enthralled in writing our novel and getting it out. Oh, but then it's time to let the world know about it, and that's kind of where we might fall short. So I think giving it away is a good strategy because you don't need a whole lot of money to do that, and you can start getting people to at least look at your work, give you some reviews which are critical, and perhaps look forward to whatever you're doing next.
Great. Would you like to add something to that, Megan, please?
Yes, definitely. I go back to the audience. What is the audience? Who are those readers, and where can I find them? Barton and I, in releasing our memoir, it was about our relationship as a couple and as a couple with someone who has a disability. So we began exploring the disability community beyond the point that we already knew. We explored some conferences to go to and to send our book out, just like Diogenes was saying, to give our book away. We sent our book out to the CEOs of companies and organizations to get it into the hands of those people that may be able to distribute it on a wider scale than we were able to do. So find your audience and see what that, who are those readers? Who's going to read your book? Is it, a certain age group or a certain gender or about a certain topic? And then really explore where you can find that audience.
Hey, Drew, can I add something to what Megan just said?
Sure.
That's really good advice, and one of the things I would recommend people do is when you give your book away, don't just give it away for the sake of giving it away. Be strategic in how and where you give it away, and I'll tell you why. My genre is Christian fiction, right? So do you think I should be giving my book away to somebody who's, let's say, opposed to Christianity? Well, you think I'm going to get a good review out of them? Probably not. So if you're writing a nonfiction memoir like Megan is doing, and you're in a group of people who really primarily enjoy horror or fiction like that, then that's probably not the right group. So her advice about getting the right group of people, it's critical, because once your reviews start coming in, it builds a little bit of momentum. It's this whole review strategy is something that I'm amazed at, where you get you get good reviews, and then you're going to get bad reviews. You're going to get good reviews, and you're going to get everything in between. So you need to position yourself so that when you put your product out there, it has the most favorable chance of landing in the hands of your correct target audience, not just someone who, let's say, just reads but doesn't really care about what you're writing. And there's a lot of folks out there, especially on Goodreads, for those of you who are members of Goodreads, there's a lot of people out there who read just lots of books a week. And I just don't know I don't think they're the best place to start to put your book out. Mm-hmm. Be more focused.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add as well that looking at what else you have, how do you market yourself? So Barton and I are also speakers, and we do editing, and so within the packets that we created had our book in that packet, we also had information about speaking topics and other ideas. So it wasn't just the book. We were sort of selling ourselves as a product.
That's a great idea, Megan. I'm going to have to steal that one.
That is a good idea. Are there some groups that that you know of who you worked with to help distribute your book?
In our case, we really looked at, again, the disability organizations, and we partnered with several of them. They included our information in their newsletters or in an email blast that they were sending out to their own listserv community. And that really helped spread the word about what we were doing and why we were doing it. There's all types of books out there, fiction and nonfiction and mystery and, sci-fi. And so, what is your goal with the book, and how can you really maximize that? So we use conferences, as I mentioned, organizations and literary organizations that support writers as well. There are many of them in North Carolina that have calendar events and that will post things for you.
Thank you. Let's move on. This is a good question for you, Megan, to start on, and that is, how important is your online presence in terms of exposing your book?
Our online presence has been critical, both individually and as a couple. Barton and I both have individual projects that we work on, and both of us are individual writers in our own right. It adds credibility to what we want to do, what our vision is, and how we're going to get there. And it also increases those circles from a local community to a global one, which is just phenomenal. We've been able to reach people all over the world, and whether they buy our book or not, they're hearing our story and we're impacting them in some way. So we can really only, the online tools through social media and listservs and online groups is all just incredibly critical to getting your book out online and getting the product out there.
Great. Diogenes, can you add something to that?
Yeah, I think your web presence is incredibly important. You know, you got to do the basics. You got to do Facebook, Twitter, and manage your website, your web content. If you have a blog, that's great. And of course, like use a tool like Hootsuite to coordinate your efforts. I think that's kind of a basic now. Having just a website or something like that it's not going to do it for you. It's just there's so much clutter. There is so much clutter. I have to be focused, and that's very difficult because it's like swimming upstream. So I think getting in strategically with a group like Megan just is doing some institutions. In her case, that might be that's a really good tactic. Depending on what you're writing and who that target audience might be, there are lots of groups that might allow you to distribute information about your book at no cost, and you start out locally and work your way out. But that is a slow and tedious process, and unfortunately, you know, we get discouraged sometimes because you know, it's just so much work. But you've got to do it if you want your book to gain readership.
Great. Well, one other thing I want to add to that is that you shouldn't wait to have your book written to start your online exposure to it. You really want to get people interested in it much before you've even published it. Now, you do want to be close enough because you don't want to get people all excited and it's a year and a half later that you have the book come out. But
it's true, Drew, because you know that's funny. I talked to a couple of author friends of mine, and I get the sense that they feel if they did that, they're cheating or something, which is kind of crazy because it's just good marketing. You know, you see that in the commercial world all the time. You know, cars come out, models of cars, product before they're released. Software is a classic example. You know, you have software come out and you wait for it for months and months. But books, I think it's almost like, ooh, I can't do that. So I think slowly self-publishers, independent authors are going to get savvy to that and hopefully do that more.
Looks like, yeah, I see you shaking your head. In agreement there, Megan.
Yes, I definitely agree that starting before the book is released really helps build that momentum after it comes out, because it does take some time to find and connect with those people who can be really strategic about helping you get it out there. And it does take time to really create those circles and figure out who are those connectors. And then once you're able to get going, you know, it sort of goes in waves, I've noticed. You know, we've had a lot of activity and then things sort of die down for a little bit, and then there's a lot of excitement about something new. And, you know, so it definitely has a wave feel, fluidity to that process of marketing, both before and after the book is released.
Great. You mentioned reviews before, Diogenes. How do you get reviews? I mean, obviously one way to do it is to give the book away, but do you have any other tips for authors about how to get reviews for their books?
I think the folks, there's a number of ways. For example, the people who beta read your book, if they really like your book and you know, you give that away to them, they can write a review. Now, the thing with reviews is I kind of look at Amazon as the standard because they're the gorilla in the market. And Amazon reviews are of two categories. They're either non-verified or verified Amazon reviews. And when you see a review posted on Amazon, if you see that it says Amazon verified review, that means the person bought the book, even if it was part of a free promotion and they downloaded your book and you got nothing out of it, it still counts as a verified Amazon review. So there's another value in giving your book away where you get reviews and it's almost formulaic. I mean, you give X number of books away, you're going to get some reviews. Unfortunately, it's not 50%. You give 100 books away, you might get 6 reviews, but those reviews add up slowly over time, and they will help then kind of build the momentum for your book. So that's primarily how I've gotten reviews is through the giveaway promo campaign. And if you're part of Amazon, they have the KBD, which is a program you have to be exclusively on Amazon, and then you can give your book away for 5 days every 90 days, I think it is.
Megan?
On our side, we did both. We sent our book out to reviewers, and we sent our book and gave our book away and asked people to review it. We found it was much more effective to have either people we knew or who were in our circles or who we spoke to at a conference. They were much more engaged and willing to write a review. And I agree that Amazon really is primarily the place where we have received those reviews. We would get comments on some of the social media sites, Facebook, when we would post something, a release, or someone had read something, they might contact us both privately or publicly through a social media site. But the Amazon was primarily the outlet for receiving reviews.
And just one more thing about those reviews. For example, my book on Amazon has received 60 reviews so far, and the average is 4.3, which is pretty good, I think. Now, that same book on Goodreads has gotten about 6 or 7 reviews, and the average is 3.5. There's a big difference there. It's almost a whole point. And I've kind of been researching, why is there such a big discrepancy? It's the same book. Well, it's, again, your audience. Amazon readers are more just readers. Folks on Goodreads are borderline obsessive. They're into books to the point that they're almost professional readers. So if you're starting out, this is your first book, I wouldn't necessarily give my book away on Goodreads. I would give it away on Amazon because I think your reviews are going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Again, that goes back to what Megan was talking about with audience when I said, where do you get your readers from? So yeah. I think we have to be really, really cognizant of who are we writing for and how do we reach them in terms of exposure.
And the reason that's really important also is because if you're doing any kind of aggressive marketing, like let's say you want to advertise on BookBub or one of these book promotion sites, well, they're going to judge your book whether they accept it or not based upon the reviews they have and the overall what they evaluate your book to be as far as quality. So reviews play an important part, and some of them will say, we don't accept books with review scores that average less than 4.2 or something. So that automatically kicks you out of the review process to go on that list. And I think BookBub is like the king. If you get accepted by BookBub with your ad, you're going to make money. Unfortunately, they're so selective. I've been rejected 4 times by them, by the way. So
a little bit like going after a
not that you have a crappy, yeah. So, but that's your score does matter. But start out pointed in the right direction, and don't get too bent out of shape if you get a couple of 1s, which you'll get some reviews that say, this book stinks, don't bother to read it, and that's all they'll write, and you think, oh man, but that's life, huh?
Now, do you respond to those reviews?
No,
Okay.
No, just ignore them. Don't respond because I think I read somewhere that one author thanked everybody for their reviews, which is kind of nice. You say thank you, but I'm not going to get into a match with somebody because it's not going to do anybody any good.
I think it's a time where you have to have a turtle shell on your back. Naturally as writers, we want people to like and love our books and what we write, especially when we've invested so much time and energy into it. And when they don't, it's sort of like that little pinprick on the side of your shoulder. So you definitely have to have some turtle shell, resiliency to let that go and just move on, because not everyone's going to like what you write. People are they'll find the grammatical errors and they'll tell you about them when they do, and that's just, it's going to happen. It's part of the process.
Oh, and plus, the other thing that I'll just add on to what Megan said because it's super important. The other thing is, if you get reviews and you start thinking about, gee, what do people really want? And you start trying to write to please them, you're going to mess yourself up because then you're going to write a crappy book. You know, I read also somewhere that a good book will either make you cringe or make you laugh. So if you're not really writing for yourself first, then you're not putting out the best product.
I think we can all probably agree on that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to this idea of giving books away. Now, you know, we spend all this time writing a book. You know, it's a labor of love in some cases, but it's a lot of hours that you're putting into it. Isn't there some reticence in terms of just giving it away willy-nilly? I mean, I know, Diogenes, you said that you want to give it to the right people, but even so, you know, if you're giving it away on Amazon, aren't those sales that you're missing by giving the book away?
Actually, no, because you either pay for exposure through advertising, which most independent new authors don't have a humongous budget to throw out a book. So you're basically you're financing your own promotion by giving the book away, which is the product. It's like having someone come into the restaurant, taste your food, and say, man, I'm coming back for some more. So no, you're not missing on book sales because ultimately, and this is also a formula, you give X number of books away on Amazon, and this has worked for me every single time, you're going to sell X number of books just because the people who got your book for free are going to recommend it to others, and you're going to, by default, sell some more books. Now, if you give 1,000 books away, you're not going to sell 1,000 books. If you give 1,000 books away, you might sell 100 books. But that's 100 books you wouldn't have been able to sell unless you gave 1,000 books away. And so this is about exposure, PR, gaining audience, and you're buying your audience, getting them to try your product. But no, I think looking at it from the standpoint that, oh, I'm not giving my book away, it's costing me, I think that's short-sighted. And if you think long-term, it really does make a lot of sense.
Along with the financial piece, I think there's also a visionary piece. You know, what is your vision? And if your vision is to use it as a tool, then yes, you know, giving it away is definitely one of the valuable tools to be able to do that. Barton and I also gave books away because you know, people needed them at the time. They needed to hear that voice or that message, and we had a copy with us, and we just sat here and we thanked them, and you know, if we asked them maybe if you liked it, write a review on it, but our one of our pieces was we wanted to reach and get our message to as many people as we could, and whether they paid for our book or didn't, in the end, doesn't matter for us.
Okay. Megan, I'm going to go to you. Were you able to get any media exposure for your book? And if you did, or even if you didn't, how did you try to get media exposure?
Yes, Barton and I did get some media exposure. We were on WRAL's Tar Heel Traveler. So Scott Mason did a piece on us back in the last spring. And we were able to be on some national and international blog podcast, essentially. So we were able to get some media exposure that way. And the way that we did that was we found the angle that we wanted, that we thought the media might be interested in, but we also connected personally with some of the people in the media industry, whether they were reviewers or television, you know, personalities, or you know, people that we knew in our community, and we began that process. It was and it wasn't intentional. Many of those people we had met in our writers groups, or you know, connected with in various social avenues here locally. And then when we were ready to release our book, we sent it as early as we could. We sort of had the release material go out about the same time that the product was complete. So much of that media happened in the spring or the summer. You know, we released it in February, but it really took until the summer to reach some of those people, and we were able to connect with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a great experience to be on camera and to do some of those pitches live. We learned a lot about how to speak and what kind of presence we wanted to have. So it was a great learning experience.
Diogenes, how about you? Did you get any media exposure to your book?
Actually, I did. I got a little write-up in a local magazine here in town. I went ahead and put a little press release together and sent it out. The title of my book is A Rabbit's Tale and Easter Story, so I timed it so that it was just before Easter, and it coincided. I got it to them early enough. I got a copy of the book. I bought them a copy of the book. I took it over there and wrote a letter and let the press release there, and they were nice enough to do a little write-up on it. I submitted it to another local magazine, but they didn't pick it up. Well, actually, they did mention it. Yeah, I didn't see it in the magazine, but somebody told me, hey, I saw you in Catholic, whatever, Catholic, NC Catholics, I think it was. There was a blurb, but there was no picture, but there was a mention. So, yeah, and every little bit hurts, and again, you just need to take the time to do it. The thing with being an author today is that you have to be both author and marketer, and those are two hats that are kind of disparate. You know, they don't come easily to everybody, and we tend to be either left brain or right brain, so it's something that is new to a lot of people.
Well, one of the things I remember, Diogenes, when you were releasing your book, or just after you released it, is you did some I don't remember what it was, videos. I think it was some videos with the rabbit, and just put it into different places that were.
Yeah. I started a blog called Conversations with the Easter Bunny. Now, the book is not a children's book, but I figured everybody knows the Easter Bunny, so my claim was the Easter Bunny and me are like this tight, you know, so we went ahead and set up a blog talking about issues of importance. The blog is still up, and I'm kind of thinking about maybe modifying a little bit, but, you know, I got a lot of folks following it, and so I can't just abandon it, and it's promoting the book through what's to me the most obvious ways, like, okay, it's not a children's book, but at least give them the opportunity to say, oh, you've got this book called, and I purposely use Easter in the name because it's seasonal. So that's my marketing time, Easter, and it is a message about Easter and all of that. So I try to make it work, help the book work for itself as much as possible, even with the title.
Great. I'm going to stay with Diogenes here. Did other authors help you with promoting your book?
Yes. Well, there's yes and no. I mean, I'm meeting more authors now because although we do know other people who write, usually that's very loosely done. It's like, hey, I know Megan, I know Drew, and so we do things together maybe occasionally, but what I started doing was being more strategic about everything. And you probably know this, Drew, but I had a marketing agency for about 18 years, and a lot of the things that are kind of going on now, I figured, okay, well, let's be strategic about our marketing, and one of the things that I think really helps us as authors is to find other authors who are trying to achieve the same goals. So with that in mind, I went ahead and set up the book preview club and invited folks to submit their books, again, for free. You know, it's like there's a lot of value in just helping folks out and being with folks who are in tune with what you're doing. So we got that off the ground, and I think there's about 30 authors on there with their books. My specific genre is Christian fiction, but it's open to everybody. And what authors do is they come in and submit their books, and it's like attracting people who not only have written a book, it's fiction or nonfiction, but who are really trying to market their book to gain exposure for it. Because I think some folks write their book and just kind of, that's it, they're done. they may not even want to have their book be out there. So this is for people who really want to get the exposure. And what we're doing is we're putting extended previews, and so that when you walk into a bookstore, you're walking to Barnes and Nobles, you go to the bookshelf and you flip through a book, and you can flip through the entire book. You can read through the end if you want. We don't go to that extent, but we do more than just the first chapter, and I encourage the authors to post as much as they feel comfortable. There's some authors who've posted 4 or 5 chapters of their book. So that really kind of hooks the reader. And so I'm trying to build that little, the book preview club, so that the authors kind of rise together and gain exposure together, because then we can all gain audience and readership. And that's actually working really well.
And I'll add to that, we are part of many different writers groups, both locally and online, and they are instrumental in helping us not only with support in the completion of our project, but also in either writing a review for us or being a part of the release process. I'm a part of the Triangle Area Freelancers. The founder and the president were they emceed our release event, and many of the members of that organization came out in support of us, and it just really created a community of support for each other in finishing our work and really helping us get it out there.
This idea of community, I think, is very important, and this is one of the things that I'm working on with the do-it-yourself publishing people that go through the course and that purchase the software. We're putting a group together so that we can help and support each other. I think it's very important, and I'm looking forward to talking to both of you offline about how we can maybe interplay that group with some of the groups that you're involved in, because I think the bigger the group we can get of authors who are supporting each other, the better that it is for all the authors.
Yeah, and to add to that, Drew, one of the things that I found is for new authors, if you don't have a whole lot of reviews, and it's kind of hard to get started, to get that ball rolling. So sometimes you'll see a book listed on Amazon and only has 3 reviews, and you figure, okay, so their brother, their mother, and their sister read the book. So you don't pay much credence to those reviews, but it might still be a great book, and it's giving a fair chance to each book. I will say that publishing has a vast amount of crappy books out there. They're not proofread, they're not edited. They're just put out there. People want to make a fast buck. But on the flip side of that, there's so many great books out there, and I want to be part of those books. I want to be able to discover them and help the people who are writing them, who perhaps are in the same genre as I am, so we can move up together. It's an exciting time to be an author.
Okay. Megan, did you do any guest blogs to help promote your book?
Yes, both individually and together. Barton and I wrote a number of guest blogs because it came out around February and it was about our relationship. Naturally, we did blogs about Valentine's Day and how to create or have a healthy relationship. We included the disability community within that, and some of those have been long-term blogging opportunities. So we were able to take one guest blog, which came out right around the time of the book release, and now we are consistently a guest blogger for that organization. So that's been exciting to see how we've been able to contribute to blogs and other people's platforms, and to be able to express and to add to what they are already getting out there. So guest blogging, it's a great tool. Strategy-wise, a couple of organizations, we looked at blogs, we did some research. We looked at blogs that we found fascinating that had to do with the audience that we wanted to market to, and a couple of them we pitched to. Of course, we got back some no's, but we also got some yeses within that. And then, we just asked what their stats were. So we had a word count limit or a deadline, and then we wrote content for them and submitted it to them. So, you know, in one case, there was an editor who came back to us. She actually wrote a blog about us. But in all the other cases, we were the authors to that material. Mm-hmm.
Very good. How about you, Diogenes? Did you do any guest blogging when you put your book out or since?
No, I haven't done any guest blogging. My approach was a little bit different. I was more focused on building a platform that would attract folks, like the conversation with the Easter Bunny and the book preview club. I think guest blogging is really an excellent way to build audience as well. I just haven't had the opportunity to dive into that as much as Megan has.
Okay, thanks. Tell us now, what is it that you're working on that we might be interested in, the group? Now, I know, Diogenes, you were talking a little bit about your website that you've put up there, so I want you to tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us a little bit about the other books that you're writing, if you would. Yeah,
well, the first book is A Rabbit's Tale, an Easter Story, and it's a tale of basically a modern-day Easter story. The second book follows where that one ends, and it's called Persistent Evil. So you remember the Star Wars trilogy? The first movie, Luke blew up the sky, the Death Star, everybody was really happy. Well, A Rabbit's Tale, everybody's real happy ending. Okay, the second book is much darker. So it takes a turn, and it's a 3-book series, so it'll wrap up in the third book. But I'm just so psyched about it. You know, you read your own stuff, but I'm just very psyched about it. And the thing that I really enjoy also is helping other authors. So with the building up this website that we were talking about, the Book Preview Club, the way it works is you go and submit your book. There's a questionnaire right on the page. You go to www.bookpreviewclub.com, fill out the author form, and just send in your information, and then it will be featured. You'll get your own page, and what I've added to it are author interviews. Now, for those authors who do want it, it's great because you can hear an author talking about why they wrote what they wrote, which to me is fascinating to learn. Let's say in Megan's case, how you wrote your book, what drove you to. I mean, it's fascinating. So to have that as part of the feature, it kind of enhances the likability and the probability that I'm going to engage more in your book. So that's what the site is built to do, short term. Long term, what the site is built to do is to allow browsers to come in and just browse, but more importantly, to allow authors to co-market strategically around their genre. For example, since I'm a Christian fiction writer, I'm collecting Christian fiction authors as part of a separate group that will then go out and actively purchase advertising, targeted advertisement. I mean on Goodreads, Facebook, but now you can select your target so specifically that I think it's a well worth endeavor to try that as long as you're very, very focused. So that's kind of the way that's evolving, and it's free for anybody to participate right now. It won't be free forever, but I think until we get critical mass, it will be free, and then we'll have a nominal fee just to allow us to build an advertising budget so we can promote the books on the site.
Great. Megan?
So individually, I am working on producing my second book as well. And this book was actually finished about 10 years ago, believe it or not. And you know, we all have manuscripts or things that we put down and we, you know, hide at the back of the shelf for a while, and we just let it collect dust. But it's important to bring it out. It's important work in the world. At that time, it was a story. The name of it is called "Leaving Traces: Diving from the Nest." When it first was completed 10 years ago, it really was about the journey of mother loss in the period after my mom passed away, and going from that period of devastation to healing through that loss. Now, as our vision has shifted and expanded, it also includes aspects of disability in that, because my mother had MS, and so I wanted to explore some of what it was like to have a mom with a disability, and now I have a husband who also has a disability, so there's some connection there that, people may or may not know about. So I wanted to explore some of those themes. So hopefully that will be out next year. So we'll see what happens with the timing of that. And then professionally, we're always in a place of evolution. Once you're done with your first book, you've just started. It's not done yet. So professionally, Barton and I are revamping our website, cuttersedgeconsulting.com. It's not quite done yet, but we wanted to have a centered place where all of our book material, as well as some consulting work that we do, and the editing and social media marketing really come together into a hub. And so we've really this year started to expand out and hope to work with larger organizations, partly because, yes, we need to sustain ourselves. And if we're able to have that balance of sustainability and meaningful projects, that for us will really create a nice balance. So that's what we hope to do, and we'll see how it all fits together and comes out.
Okay. Well, let's kind of finish up. Megan, would you tell us how we can get in touch with you and what your website and other ways? What's the best way to reach you if somebody wanted to either use your services in terms of editing or find out more about your book, or just get in touch with you?
Yes, so as I mentioned, cuttersedgeconsulting.com is our website, and you can find information about Barton does coaching specifically, and then we do editing and marketing together as well. So you can find information about that on our website. And as I mentioned, it's in evolution, so we're really excited about a new look and new images and all kinds of new things coming up with that. You can email me at Megan at cuttersedgeconsulting.com, and both Barton and I are on all the social media sites, so they're listed. We do have a website specifically for our first book. It's called inkinthewheels.com. And our social media buttons are all at the top there for you to find.
Great, thanks. Diogenes, could you give us your contact information?
Sure. My email, of course, is Diogenes Ruiz, my name, DIOGENES RUIZ @live.com. And that's probably a good way to get a hold of me. And the Book Preview Club, which is bookpreviewclub.com. You can get a hold of me through that form there. So those are probably the two easiest ways. My website, personal website, is diogenesruiz.com, so it's fairly easy to find.
Okay. Thank you so much. And if you want to get a hold of me and find out about the DIY Publisher Pro or some of the other things that I'm doing with writers, you can go to conveymediagroup.com, and for the course, it's under the training tab up there. So. Well, I want to thank both of you tonight for joining us at the Writer's Corner, and this has been an enlightening conversation about exposing your book. Thank you all, and thank all of the people out there who have watched it and who will watch it once it's up. We appreciate your patronage, and look forward to seeing you next month. Thanks again.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you, Drew.